Jane Doe is one of the best DPSs in Zenless Zone Zero, and today I'll explain everything you need to know to make her even more OP than you think. She has an insane amount of damage from anomalies and also works with several different teams, regardless if you're free to play or a spender, so she's definitely worth considering if you're interested in her, given that she also works as a solo anomaly hyper carry or can be part of an amazing disorder team. Her versatility and potential is endless. Before I go further, keep in mind that the footage from this video will be from the creator beta server and things are subject to change, but without further ado, let's get into it. If you've tested Jane in game or seen my prior first impressions video, you already know that she applies anomaly at an insane speed and has a lot of mobility in her kit. The core of her gameplay revolves around applying anomaly quickly, and funnily enough, that's pretty much all she has to her. Although there are optimizations here and there, the second that she applies physical anomaly, most enemies simply disappear. When fighting harder bosses, she helps allies daze even faster with her assault anomaly, and this is fantastic since this buffs both her own damage and her team's ability to stun. And now onto her basic attack. Let's begin again with her passion state. This is what gives Jane her unique resource, the buff to her anomaly application and her attack, and also what gives her one charge of Salcho jump. In terms of the buff she receives, Jane is granted a 25% increased buildup rate for physical anomaly and also gains 2 attack for every point of anomaly she has after 120 with a cap of 600. Jane needs 420 anomaly proficiency to max this value out. To enter the passion state though, Jane must max her resource bar, and there are a few ways to do this. Jane can deal damage, perform a perfect dodge or an assist, and these are guaranteed ways to increase the bar at a decent rate. However, if you use her ultimate or her chain attack, she immediately fills the bar instead. Maintaining the state is important since you only keep the buffs when you are in it, but do know that there is not a timer for how long you can stay in the passion state. The only way for this bar to decrease is when she deals damage with her skills. Side note, although performing any damaging skills will increase her resource bar when she isn't in the passion state, using perfect dodges, defensive assists, chain attacks, her ultimates, or her charged attack, Salcho jump, will regenerate her resource bar while she's in the passion state. In regard to her actual basic attack, it has 6 parts to it and it applies a high amount of anomaly just by completing the entire combo. In terms of damage, Jane is an anomaly character and therefore her basic attack doesn't deal nearly as much damage as the anomaly. That being said, her basics do have decent daze multipliers considering how fast she performs these attacks, but it's nothing special unless you also account for her assault value. The other part of her basic attack combo is Salcho jump. This is the spinning attack that Jane can perform once every passion state, and it applies a large amount of anomaly too. Salcho jump does do a decently high damage and daze multiplier compared to the rest of her kit, but the only way for her to get another one is by leaving the passion state or by using her chain attack or ultimate while in the state. Throughout combat, however, Jane will end up leaving the passion state anyway, so this doesn't matter too much, but it is worth noting so you aren't confused about how or when you get another charge. Although Jane's basic attack is already pretty straightforward in how you use it, her special attack is even simpler. Using it will give Jane invincibility, and the attack itself is one of the highest damage and highest dazing abilities. Additionally, while it does cost 60 energy to use, her EX special attack also fills the anomaly bar roughly 50% when not in passion state and 65 to 70% when you are in it. This is crazy. Let's talk now about her assist and dodge now. Similar to other anomaly agents, Jane's follow-up assists and dodge counters are both good sources of anomaly or daze when you can perform them. In regard to her dash attacks, using them is necessary for her signature W engine's passive, so you do have to use them if you have the W engine for it. There are certain times when using her dash attack in general will yield higher anomaly values, but Jane will spend most of her time basic attacking or using her EX special attack anyway, simply because of how quickly and easily she applies assault with them. Jane also has different dash attacks and dodge counters depending on which state she is in, and the passion state versions of course have higher damage and higher daze multipliers as opposed to the regular versions. This is partly due to the bonuses she gains while she's in the passion state, but also because the skills have higher multipliers. This doesn't change anything and you won't be going out of your way to only use passion state counters or dash attacks, so this is pretty much just in case you wanted to know. Jane's chain attacks and ultimate are similar to her dodge and assist, dealing decent damage and having good daze multipliers. However, the anomaly buildup alongside the refresh to her passion state and the additional use of Salcho jump make either extremely valuable to use. And finally, onto Jane's core passive and additional ability. These two are very important. Jane's core passive applies nod to an enemy for 10 seconds, and this is huge because applying assault to any enemy in the nod state allows assault damage to crit. With this passive, Jane also gains a base crit rate of 40% at max core skill level, and this also gives her 50% crit damage. However, the biggest thing to remember here is that she also gains an additional 0.16% crit rate at max for every single point of anomaly proficiency. This means she needs to reach 375 total anomaly proficiency efficiency on her stat to guaranteed crit every time. Don't worry though, for those of you who didn't pre-farm her weekly materials, I also calculated how much you need if you're a core skill level C, and the answer is 419.54, aka 420. No, this isn't a joke. Jane's additional ability is also great once you realize that the entire point of Jane's kit is to apply Assault. The 15% increase to anomaly buildup because of this is then absolutely amazing. The other 15% she gains after hitting a target who suffers from attribute anomaly is also fantastic, but this does mean that someone else has to apply an anomaly first, or she will miss the additional buildup rate for the first assault that she's applying. Truthfully, this is not that big a deal, and accepting the loss for the first assault is not that impactful. Moving along to her skill priority, she is an anomaly character, so the actual damage scaling of these skills is way less important. As a result, focusing on all of her skills equally is fine, but remember that their days values also change based on their upgraded level. With that in mind, upgrading these skills that Jane performs the most, aka her chain, EX special, and basic attack, is a decent idea. At the end of the day, however, she is an anomaly character, and therefore she doesn't gain that much from upgrading her skills outside of, again, some added days and some minor damage. Jane's ideal combos are actually way simpler than you may think, and it's mostly because of her basic attack. Her basic, fortunately or unfortunately, doesn't have that many ways to optimize it, and therefore simply performing it is amazing in terms of damage. Unlike other characters where their combo is different depending on whether you are fighting a boss or non-boss enemies, the only thing that will change what Jane does is whether you have her signature or not. I'll dive deeper into the W engines later, but assuming you don't have her signature, simply perform the entirety of her basic attack combo, sneak in an EX special attack before you cap out on energy, and that's it. That's the whole combo. Okay, to be fair, once she's buffed up, it is ideal for Jane to follow a couple things, like only unleashing Salcho Jump while she is in the passion state, but outside of that and making sure to use chain attacks or ultimates while also in the state, there isn't that much optimization to Jane's combos. Side note, if you do have her signature, using 3 dash attack combos before you apply your assault anomaly is important, but this is exclusively for those who have the W engine. What's more important though is the order of her team and how she swaps. This unfortunately is still up for debate, and there are pros and cons to each playstyle, but generally speaking, this is a sample flowchart of how Jane can approach combat and who goes where. This isn't including fights where there aren't bosses, however, since Jane can just basic attack them until they disappear. To begin, the order of the team is Jane, Stunner, Support. Jane first applies Assault to start so that dazing is easier for her Stunner, then she swaps to the Stunner and, well, stuns the boss, starting the chain attack. The order of the chain attack mostly depends on the agent or team composition being played, but swapping to Jane, followed by the Stunner, then ending things with the Support who can quick assist back to Jane is generally fine. This allows the team's Bang Boot to deal decent damage, gives you 3 chain attacks, and assuming everyone is decently leveled, this is one of the most comfortable setups. Do know that if you have Seth, however, the order of the team will need to change with Seth in the second slot as opposed to the third, but this is only for him and does not change the chain attack order. Another variation from this same path has Jane's team perform everything the same, but once your Stunner begins the chain attack, it is possible to swap into the Support, then to Jane and cancel the chain attack before the third hit. This is nice if you don't like performing long chain attacks on your supports, or if your Bang Boot isn't high level, but keep in mind that any character using Swing Jazz must be included in the chain attack combo, or else you miss out on its 4-piece passive. On the topic of teams, let's talk about a few of the best teams for her and what teams you can run on a budget. In terms of performance, Jane, Chingy, Seth, and Jane, Chingy, Grace are both amazing options for their own reasons. Adding a Stunner alongside Seth and Jane in the Jane, Chingy, Seth composition results in a solo carry Jane team with her constantly applying assaults against a stunned enemy while having an enormous anomaly proficiency buff. This team performs great for players who just want to stay on Jane most of the time, and it also does crazy damage. Jane, Chingy, Grace is also great because of its Disorder playstyle. Being able to apply this many anomalies and Disorder at the same time results in high damage and high days too. This team is definitely more premium and expensive to run though, because it requires having 3 S ranks with 2 being limited banner characters, but it definitely has one of the highest damage potentials with Disorder being applied to a stunned enemy. For budget teams, Jane has a few options even if you are low spend or free to play. Jane, Ambi, Nicole will definitely perform well as long as you align the stun and debuffs from Nicole properly, and swapping out Nicole for Seth if you manage to get him from Jane's banner will also make this team better. That being said, even replacing Nicole for someone like Sokaku or Lucy will work depending on how insane Jane herself is, but simply providing buffs to Jane will make her hard carry any team, and even though you might be missing out on synergies running some of the budget teams, having a stunner or damage increase at all will just make Jane do well anyways. I do recognize that sometimes I miss including every single possible composition, as I've been told in my comment section sometimes, but my videos would be 3 hours long if I went super in depth on each variation and their strength. So instead, here are a few other variations just in case that I've also seen work well, specifically with Jane. Let's talk now about Jane's potential build, starting with her stats. The most important stat for Jane is anomaly proficiency, since she gains additional stats like attack percent or crit rate on her assaults. To reach the anomaly proficiency numbers she needs, however, for the free stats in her kit, Jane will require a 4th slot anomaly proficiency disc in almost every case. In the 5th disc slot, physical damage and pen ratio are actually tied in performance depending on which team you're using with her, but attack percent is also fine, but only slightly behind in performance. The 6th slot disc drive is reserved for either anomaly mastery or attack percent, but this is more dependent on your Jane's performance and feel. If she is struggling to apply anomalies quickly, anomaly mastery is definitely the best choice, but attack percent is definitely valuable too if Jane ends up overcapping on anomalies or if the enemy dies in one single rotation. To make things even more complicated and messy, sometimes applying anomalies even faster and multiple times with an anomaly mastery disc can have better results than attack percent. Overall, both choices are fine, but anomaly mastery is usually safer and is what I generally recommend. For substats, Jane only wants to focus on anomaly proficiency and attack percent, with flat attack being the 3rd best role and pen as your 4th. As a reminder, in PSA, any crit related main stat or substat will not affect Jane's anomaly, and therefore it's not worth building at all. For a sample build, what you are going to be looking for is roughly 24 to 2900 attack and roughly 360 to 420 anomaly proficiency, depending on how desperate you are to gain the maximum attack from your basic attack passive. After the fact, having at least 150 to 190 anomaly mastery is key, but these are the only 3 stats that really matter for Jane, as she is definitely focused primarily on anomaly proficiency and attack percent. For disc drive sets, Jane performs the best on Fanged Metal, and this makes sense since physical element damage scales well with her. With its 4-piece passive also always active due to Jane's fast anomaly application, this set is the best option for her hands down. For her 2-piece disc drive options, however, Freedom Blues, Hormone Punk, and Puffer Electro all perform very similar to each other based on calculations done, but Freedom Blues is slightly ahead by a small amount. If you aren't able to run 4-piece Fanged Metal, if 4-piece Fanged Metal is impossible for you at the time, running a triple set variation of 2-piece Hormone, 2-piece Puffer, 2-piece Freedom, or 2-piece Fanged Metal can definitely work, or just running 4-piece Freedom Blues will suffice as well. Just know that ultimately these will perform worse than just having Fanged Metal. For Jane's W engine options, she actually has plenty, but they need some context and explaining. First and foremost, her signature is absolutely game changing on Jane herself, with a near 20% increase in damage when using it. But excluding S rank engines, here's a rundown of her choices. Electro Lip Gloss in theory would perform the best of all A rank W engines, however this is assuming that it has its passive maintained at all times and that it is rank 5. The main reason why Electro Lip Gloss is sometimes not recommended is specifically because of what I just mentioned. In order to make this W engine shine, it needs 6 battle passes worth of time for it to be high performing, and there is a specific condition in combat that you need to maintain for it to be great. By contrast, Rainforest Gourmet is way easier to get multiple copies of, and it also only performs slightly worse while having a way easier combat condition to meet. Whereas Electro Lip Gloss can lose damage at the start of a fight, Rainforest Gourmet immediately gains value the second that energy is consumed. This, alongside it being easier to get 6 copies of Rainforest Gourmet, does make it more appealing than Electro Lip Gloss, but keep in mind that the potential of Electro Lip Gloss does end up beating Rainforest Gourmet, assuming both are at the same level. The other option is Weeping Gemini, and it's actually the middle ground between Electro Lip Gloss and Rainforest Gourmet. It's also slightly harder to maintain in combat, but it also ends up performing slightly better than Rainforest Gourmet too. It's purchasable in the gadget store, unlike Electro Lip Gloss, and similar to Rainforest Gourmet, so this is basically the middle option between Electro Lip Gloss and Rainforest Gourmet if you decide to run this instead. Long story short though, it's definitely a strong choice if you have it, but I would definitely recommend either choosing Rainforest Gourmet for comfortable playing, or Electro Lip Gloss if you are a god gamer and use its passive correctly. Let's break down Jane's Mindscapes. Like other banner characters, her early first and second Mindscapes are impactful. Her first Mindscape grants an additional cast of Salcho Jump, which is one of her highest damage abilities and fastest applying anomaly skills. It also boosts her anomaly buildup rate by 15% and adds 0.1% damage per anomaly proficiency point with a cap of 30%, which translates to a 20% total increase in damage, similar to the value of her signature W engine. The second Mindscape takes things further and is even better by ignoring 15% of the enemy's defense when they're in the nod state, triggered by either Jane or by any squad member. It also adds 50 crit damage to her core skill passive, which which in total grants her a 40% overall damage increase. While her 4th Mindscape also benefits the squad's anomaly damage, especially with Grace and Seth/Qingyi, her 6th Mindscape is actually less impressive. Although it offers 20% crit rate, 40% crit damage, and a 1600% anomaly proficiency attack, these bonuses don't affect her damage or assault anomaly the way that you think they do. As a result, the 6th Mindscape only adds around 5% to her total damage, since not only does the anomaly proficiency attack scale pretty poorly, but the crit rate and crit damage you gain doesn't apply to her assault anomaly at all. Whether it's intentional that it affects her base stats rather than her anomaly is unclear, but it's definitely one of the game's least valuable 6th Mindscapes currently. I already mentioned in my first impressions video whether I believed Jane is worth pulling, so I'll do a shameless plug here, but truthfully, Jane's damage is on par with Ellen or Juyuan, if not slightly better, and unfortunately, she is by no means unique as a damage dealer. Yes, she does have the ability to crit with her anomalies, but aside from this, she's just another damage dealer who can deal with physical weak enemies, but also has arguably one of the best designs in the game. If you love her design and gameplay, by all means pull for her, and if you don't, she's definitely not a must pull, but it is nice if you want to pull for a character who's physical and you want to beat up physical weak enemies. Anyways guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed, if you learned something, make sure to check out the rest of my socials. Make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. Thank you again for watching today's video. I will see you on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night. Bye-bye.